Welcome back to the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. I am so excited about today's guest, someone many of you will remember from our recent conversation about her powerful book. Hertha Lund is not only a Gestalt coach and author, but also a woman who has walked her own deep journey of healing and transformation. She brings incredible wisdom from her work with trauma informed coaching and from her life with horses at the Four Horses for Wholeness Retreat Center. Today, we're going to dive into some profound topics together, from what it means to embody presence to how our bodies remember to breaking free from limiting beliefs. And then Hertha's going to share an amazing opportunity that she's created, a 6-month group coaching experience that just might be the key to your own transformation. Hertha, welcome back. I am so glad to have you here with us again.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Kimber. It's so exciting, and to think that you're on the East Coast and I'm here in Montana, and yet we get to have this deep connection over all these miles, which is really what it's all about. We think we're separate geographically and otherwise, and really we're connected. And I just love connecting with you and being here with you on your channel, all that you do, because it is amazing work, and I've been blessed with having my interactions of talking to you. And so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I absolutely feel the very same way from the moment our physical bodies encountered each other in Colorado at a little bit North Ranch at Summit and graduation, uh, purchasing your amazing book, a few of them, so that I could hand them out. Um, and then here we are. And truly, I think uh, for some, you wouldn't think that you can connect on a soul and heart level through a computer screen, through Zoom, but you absolutely can. And you and I both know that through our coaching online. We are effective in what we do and how lives are transformed, even through a Zoom screen. And I think it has a lot to do with how we somatically connect with people, even hours outside of our time zone, which you are right now. And I feel with you like you are my soul sister. And I'm so very grateful. And I know that it was divine that our lives intersected, connected. So grateful for that. And I'm going to dive into my very first question. And for those who are just meeting you for the very first time right here, could you share just a little bit about your background, your journey, and also remind us about your recent book that has touched so many hearts, including mine?
Sure. Grew up on a ranch in Montana. I actually went to a one-room schoolhouse that didn't even have indoor plumbing. So I'm really not that old, but I lived on the edge, literally somewhat on the edge of the frontier, seemingly.
Oh,
And it was a great way to grow up. However, it was heaven on earth and hell at home because my mom had her own issues from childhood sexual trauma that in those days it would be very hard to deal with in rural Montana. And unfortunately, she chose to drink alcohol as a means to self-medicate. And I got the brunt of that because I was the oldest daughter. And so that served as very early trauma for me before I could talk. Also, at that time, I was sexually molested by a neighbor kid. So I'm a very young girl. I have these twin towers of trauma, and but I had heaven on earth because of outside being in nature and with my horses. And I always had a connection. I always talked to God. It wasn't something I learned on the outer, it was something I always just did. So it was a very interesting way to grow up. I grew up on the breaks. With the breaks in Montana is this country that looks so huge. The skyline is really big, but the roughness of it is ravines and crevices that go down. And it's a type of country, if you're there and you look out, if you're not comfortable with yourself, you're going to feel naked. I mean, it's so big, it's so open, and it's a place to really develop your a soul's inner awareness of who they are. And I often now look back and I think all those crevices I'm a student of deep psychology, and I just love getting into Jungian psychology. And those deep crevices are almost like the deep parts of us where we have pockets of things that are hidden, that we've put our defenses that we've put together to try to keep us from getting hurt and stuff. So I developed those early on. I one strategy that I developed was doing my best to excel on the outer so that I could keep on moving so I wouldn't slow down to feel. I started rodeoing when I was 9, and at that time I'm kind of a larger frame. I mean, I played basketball, actually college basketball, and I was a horseshoer. So as a barrel racer, my time of being a good barrel racer ended about in my teens because I just got to where I was my own weight. I could cut off a leg and still weigh more than most of the barrel racers. So I decided that real cowgirls roped. And I became one of the first women or girls at that time to rope under 3 seconds. Now, many girls breakaway rope under 3 seconds, but I was one of the first. So kind of a pioneer in women roping. And I went, worked my way. I was very involved in sports, athletics, a state champion in this, 2 different sports the same year, national contender, good grades. I just excelled on the outer, but on the inner, I was just burning up. I had so much pain, and it just got locked in my body. And after high school, I went to college for a while, was studying to be a doctor or veterinarian. And that didn't, I kind of took a turn for a while and really followed a spiritual path. So I took time off from school and just focused on in a deep spiritual path and developing a practice. Then in my late 20s, I went back to school at Temple in Philadelphia. So I decided I was going to become a writer. And because people who wrote about the West, and they were trying to tell us how to do things, and I was like, they really don't understand us. So I wanted to write and help people understand, but I decided I would go to the East Coast because I thought they didn't understand me. So if I wrote and I didn't understand them, I would be equally, with the same type of mindset where I was trying to talk to somebody about when I really didn't understand them. So I went to school at Temple, and when I graduated, I did for a while in the West. I would sell stories for like $35 a story. I'd sell it 3 ways. I could barely pay for my gas, so definitely a struggling writer for a couple of years. And then I got a job covering Congress as a journalist. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. And while I was covering Congress, I covered a Supreme Court case. And I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I come back to Montana and go to law school.
Oh,
And after law school, I go back to DC and I clerk for the Chief Judge, United States Court of Federal Claims. And so since then, since 1995, I've been an attorney and I've done litigation. I have my own practice. But being an attorney matched my inner desire to keep moving, to never feel. Also, it matched my cowgirl toughness, all those ways that I had developed to armor up so I wouldn't feel. Because, as a lawyer, you got to be tough, and you get paid to rumble. But that was not very healthy for me. And 10 years ago, I had so much inflammation around my heart and lungs that I died. And it just escalated to the fact where my body almost, literally couldn't make it. But I'm not going to, I talked about a lot of that in the last one, so I won't go deeply into the story. But when I got up there, and note that there was no time or space when we're out of our body, and that next realm, and it's with us all the time. It's just whether or not we connect to it. And I think that's why we can connect over the miles too, is because there is no time or space when we're talking about love and light. Anyhow, I went up there and I was pretty happy to be gone because there were parts about life I didn't like here on Earth. And then I realized I wasn't done. And so I wanted to come back. And I promised to do whatever it took to heal and get into my body. And as soon as I made that promise, I just fell right back into my body. It was actually kind of horrible because I go from this place that's all light and love, and then my body is heavy and sick. The last 10 years, I've been working on healing my body, keeping my promise to God to do anything it took to heal. And one of the things that I did was I started studying with equine gestalt coaching with Melissa Pierce, and that's how we know each other. And that helped me heal, and it really fed my heart, that was the part of my heart that was fully open with horses. So I think when we want to heal, we got to figure out where's that place where light and love actually still comes into us. And then how do we grow that? Because what I've learned in even doing, what Jung calls shadow work, We don't do, if we just do battle with what we don't like about ourselves, we're just going to be stuck there. So the way for transformational healing to work is first we got to increase the light. And so, for me, my heart was open to horses. And so I could bring in light there and then start working through like titration, going into those places where I didn't want to feel and that I was scared to feel. In fact, I thought feeling would kill me. And it was actually the opposite looking backwards. Not feeling was killing me. And with that, I became a coach. I had no idea I would love coaching so much. I've now done, I think I'll be doing my 11th retreat in later on this month, 2 or 3 weeks from now. I did write the book. I just got a notice on Facebook yesterday. 4 years ago, I was in the Bob Marshall Wilderness on a backcountry packing trip. And during that packing trip, I was talking to the guy our guide, Ernie. And Ernie and I told him about my near-death experience. And I probably told that story 1 or 2 times. That was one of the first times I'd ever told the story. It was just so near and dear to me. And we were around the campfire that night. And he says, Hertha, why don't you tell him what happened? And I glared at him. I was like, I didn't say I was going to tell that story. And then part of a voice inside of me said, if people want to hear it, you should share it. And so I shared it kind of tentatively, and I got such a beautiful response. And one of the young men there, Justin, said, if you write that book, I'm getting chills telling you this. He said, I'll read it. And I don't read books very much. So that was 4 years ago. And now I realize I wrote the book. I graduated from the master's Gestalt coaching. And now I've been in training to be a professional, inspirational, transformational speaker. So much has happened so fast, and I'm healthier now than ever. The good news is the doctors thought that the inflammation that I had that literally, kind of was ending, potentially life ending, they thought it would scar my heart and lungs forever, and I would be, limited through the rest of my life. When I went back for imaging several years after that experience, they were giddy. They were like, you have no scar tissue. I went to each one of them independently, and they said, do whatever you're doing, keep doing. And so I believe, and my experience is, I did do all of the outer things to heal, multiple different things, but none of that will really work for inner healing and total healing unless we do the inner part. And that is different for all of us. There is no linear path to healing. It's circular, but I also believe that no matter where you are, if you decide that you want to heal, you take that responsibility, you will be provided what you need to heal. I found all the resources that I needed in Bozeman, Montana. And, I was going to go to Mayo Clinic. And at one point, one of my friends who's a doctor said, Hertha, there's good doctors there, but you had good doctors. They're going to do all the same tests, find the same things, and charge you $100,000. And I'm like, well, I don't really want that. So I took the responsibility for my healing, which is one of the transformational pillars, is we have to take responsibility. It's like heal thyself. But then the healing comes from multiple different ways. It comes from the horses, it comes from the doctors, it comes from a coach, it comes from Mother Nature, it comes from, our experience on a daily purpose. So transformational healing is, I'm kind of a junkie now. I love it so much. And there are times where it's not easy because change is hard. The whole word transformation means that we're going to change from who we are today, who we've gotten used to. And in fact, when I was making some of the biggest inner moves towards wholeness, I realized I was shedding a part of me that no longer served me, wasn't big enough, wasn't loving enough, wasn't light enough. And I actually mourned. I actually cried because I realized I was leaving it behind. And I knew that for a time I would be uncomfortable because my old way of being in the world I would no longer be, and I would be experiencing life in a new way. So I think that's maybe more than you asked for.
Oh, uh, bring it. I love it. Our audience will resonate with this so deeply. And if you want to get deeper into Hertha's NDE, she goes more in depth in that first interview. And at the end of this video, you will see a link to the video to go and watch that first interview with Hertha. It's a beautiful journey. Absolutely. And I totally resonate with all that you have said. You're right. It can be painful at times. It's what you've been comfortable with. It's what's your strategy for surviving has worked until it doesn't. It absolutely takes a toll physically, as well as, emotionally on the body, but the physical part. And I can attest to this, Hertha. I was a musician back in the day. I had Epstein-Barr virus. I had all kinds of really horrible physical issues. And I can tell you, as a woman who's 62 years old, who takes no medications because I don't need them now, I feel through my healing journey younger, healthier, better than ever, and embracing life. And I do attribute that to having spent years deep diving into the stuff that's been hiding behind doors and in crevasses. And I've taken them out one by one and said, I'm not afraid of you, but we need to have a little conversation here. What do you need? What are you trying to tell me? And I have felt myself physically and spiritually just continue to ascend to a place where I am just so grateful to be. And I know that the learning and the journey never ends, but I'm not terrified of it any longer. Life is beautiful. I'm anxious to learn what it's trying to teach me, what the shadows are trying to teach me. So you talk about the importance of embodying presence. And for someone that's new to that idea, what does it actually mean to embody presence in everyday life?
Means everything. And so presence is another way of saying, so let me unpack that just a little bit. Regardless of our faith, all of us have the ability to connect to our higher consciousness and to bring and to open up and embody more light and love. And we've probably all felt presence. So think about the greatest love you ever felt. I mean, somebody might be when they think about holding their baby for the first time. I didn't have children, so when I was started healing, I had to think about my horses because that was what I related to. But guess what? I can love people now as much as I love horses. And what you said about age, I'm 63. I went to my 45th high school reunion a little while ago, and I looked younger, and this is what people reported to me, than most people there, and some people by a decade or more. I mean, and that wouldn't have been before I died and came back. That would not have been the truth. I also had Epstein-Barr, you know, migraines, endometriosis, all these different conditions, and I too do not take any medications. So it's an amazing way to live. It's like I feel my soul has been freed. So to get to there, the first thing to do is to embody presence. That takes slowing down, and you can tell when you're in your presence because everything is quiet inside. And sometimes it's hard to ever experience that for the first time, but sometimes people find it in nature. But once you find it, then you want to grow it every day until you can find it all the time. I know that I'm not in presence when I'm tightened up. I feel the stress hormones. I'm in flight or fear. That is not presence. But where I was unconsciously, I had complex PTSD. So I was unconsciously almost always in flight or flight fear. I didn't do much fawning. That was not my fear, not one of the strategies I used. I did use freeze though. That came up occasionally. So anyhow, when we are in presence, and the horses help with that, because when we're present in our bodies, and that means we're calm and we're fully in our, remember my promise to God was I promised to get in my body. When I made that promise, I was like, part of me is like, why did I say that? And I lived most of my life because my number one strategy was, you know, disconnection. What's that when we call it? Disassociation. So I could disassociate like that, and then I wouldn't feel, and I could be free to be in my head, which also helped me ramp up. I could act out of my stress hormones because I wouldn't feel in my body and I'd just be in my head. So anytime I start getting that tough feeling, I have certain ideas that is coming on. Now, in the past, I used to be addicted to it. I kind of liked it. I liked going on a run. It was like eating an ice cream sundae emotionally. It's like, here we go, whoo! And I think it's probably like sometimes how even people, musicians, there are times when you're playing the music and you get on that run. For me, that's what it felt like to have that adrenaline run and where I'd get really into my defenses and my ego. So I had to learn how to get, feed myself without that type of high, which I no longer have. And so we get in our body, and the horses, when we're in our body and we're congruent and we're authentic, they'll connect with us. And my horses, Mystic is my big mare. If you're not in your body and connected, or if you just leave and start doing it, thinking in your head, like I could ask you to start doing math, and she'll be totally connected. And if you start doing math, she'll be like, nothing going on there. I'm out of here. I mean, she just has no respect for us if we're just in our head. So
Yeah. Yeah. How does embodying presence become a doorway into true transformation?
it is the foundation. Without presence, it so I developed my model of healing involves the four bodies: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And most of us are only aware of the physical to be true. We think we have emotions, or we think we are our emotions. We have thoughts, they are, and some of us have a spiritual life. All of us have a spiritual body, whether or not we engage in that part of our consciousness at all. But with those bodies, we have to be present in the physical body for all of them to come into alignment. And to heal, they've all got to be raised up and kind of working equally. So it's like a four-horse hitch, not two horses in front and two horses in back. It's four across. And so once we have our four bodies in congruence, and the way that we heal also is, when we're present and our heart's open, and we are open to invoking more light and love, then I actually have a pendant on. Can you see that?
Oh, I love that. Oh,
Yeah, these are all actually Montana sapphires that I my husband and I and some friends mined. But what it is it's a figure eight. So to heal, we've got to be connected here below to what's above us. And it
mhm.
goes through our heart. And so when we have that presence and that connection of the figure eight, then we are creating what we need, the extra energy that we need to heal. If we don't do this, it's like changing, think about the Titanic. You can move the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic, but it was still going to go down because something happened underneath. For us, if we just try to move things around or control it on the outside or do this intervention, and we don't change what's happening, inside by bringing in greater presence, then we're just literally changing the chairs on the Titanic. We are not creating the atmosphere, all the ingredients of what's necessary for healing. But healing is actually fairly natural if we go through the steps and we trust, and we desire to find that wholeness. And I truly, for me, it is a freedom, a way of being. I mean, even sharing it with you just gives me, spirit tingles, a way of living that I did not dream existed. It's hard to dream it exists until we experience it, way beyond my greatest hopes and beliefs about how it would be to live in a body on earth. So I think when we do that, that is the greatest way we can change the world around us. So I'm on a mission to spark a revolution for wholeness, one heart at a time. Because when you become whole, I become whole, and we resonate at that. We become like the horses, we're tuning forks for other people to find their wholeness. So it takes presence for us to be able to understand and develop the self mastery of our physiology and our psychology to be able to have our bodies operate, not be in stress, fight or flight, all those things that happen when we get ramped up. Once we learn how to be in our body and get the skills to be able to bring down the temperature of our nervous system, then we become wherever we go, we're like a tuning fork for other people to find their wholeness.
100%. I find that I interact with the world so on such a different level now, where I used to get triggered by someone's presence. It might be, I might feel anger from them or even perceived, right? I'm like that deer and oh, let me look. Oh my God, here comes a predator. And, and how am I going to react and go into fight or flight? Where now that part of me, even if the trigger comes up for a second, I acknowledge it. What are you trying to tell me? But I acknowledge it differently so that when I'm interacting with that other soul, I'm I can feel what's behind their presence, what they're putting out there, the mask they're wearing, and I see behind it. And therefore, I approach them with love, with an understanding, and not throwing gasoline on what could be a bonfire, right? We all know that. Pardon my French. We can all throw the match at the gasoline and the wood and create a huge shit show that you have to clean up later. But instead, by interacting so differently and with such an awareness, you also help them to let their guard down, to flip out of, to switch out, to go from the parasympathetic to the trigger, to the frontal cortex, and like, oh. And then you see them soften, you feel them soften,
Yes,
and you can create a chain effect, right?
totally.
Yeah. And I love that way of seeing the world now, instead of seeing it as a wounded victim, as a deer that was constantly on the lookout for who's going to try to harm me now. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I agree 100%, Hertha, that we have, I feel, a mission to change hearts one heart at a time, and that has a ripple effect, and the world needs to change. We've been doing this for how long? It's not working. The old way doesn't work anymore. The being angry, being triggered all the time, it's not working anymore. It creates wars, it creates tension, and that's not living. That's not living. That's surviving. And we've done that. We get it. We understand survival. We had to do it and strategize to do it. And so this is, for me, a new way of living, of existing here.
And I can tell you, after having worked for more than 30 years working on policy and laws and stuff, people
Mm.
put a lot of effort into politics, laws, and policy as a way to change the world. My experience, based on 3 decades, is we will not change anything with that alone because it's a misuse of power. We go there and we go with our tribe and we march up there and we say we're gonna have to do this and the rest of them are all wrong. That just doesn't work. You can't even get your horse. I can't even get my horses who are calm, gentle, and loving to connect with me if I come in there with my armor on. And so as a country, we've kind of gotten it all backwards. We think we're going to solve problems by laws and policy. And I think that was one of the founding fathers said, if we were all angels, we wouldn't need laws. And so to use the law and policy to try to force other people to do what we want, it can't work because energetically it's wrong.
Oh,
And so to go forward, if we want to change the world, first we change ourselves. And then when we have ourselves changed, we actually probably won't even want to change anyone else because we're no longer into that. We don't misuse power anymore. But when we change ourselves, that does change the world around us. And then we can work together. You and I have never talked politics. We may be on the same page, we may not. But I'm pretty certain, coming from the foundation that we have, that we could talk about things openly and honestly without getting triggered. And at some point, we need to have rooms full of people like that, and hopefully Congress full of people like that. And of course, I'm really dreaming now, but that we then will be able to start solving problems because we'll work on them together in a commonness and a unity, in a congruence, in peace, connection. And then, I do believe that it could be, it's not probably tomorrow, but it could happen much faster than we think. But no matter what, if you changing you, me changing me, that regardless of what happens in the outer world, that means we're in the best place we can be to deal with whatever happens. And so that to me is the first answer is to heal myself and to walk the earth in as great a wholeness and to live in love and light. And note, I mean, I oftentimes, don't get it all right. And so the question is, what do you do then? Well, I acknowledge that. Sometimes it's painful because I'm, embarrassed or I wished I wouldn't have done something. And I go back to that place of sense of being in peace and presence and just being really calm. And then I forgive myself and I start over.
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful. Mm. You have also emphasized that healing is ultimately our own responsibility. Why is it so important that each of us takes ownership of our healing rather than waiting for some outside solution to come along?
Well, in my experience, and that was one of the first things I learned in the hospital after I came back to my body, is I was like, and I've had good doctors, and I don't think they made mistakes, but they can't heal me. There is not much in modern medicine that is healing. Healing is when we go to the core, we change the core condition, and then our changes ripple up, and all throughout our body and our consciousness and our whole being, to where the cause and core of whatever caused that place of disease, dis-ease is no longer present. So, so they can't, if we need surgery, we need surgery. And there was a time where I actually took pain pills for years. Thank God I
Mm,
didn't become addicted and I'm here today. So I have used pills when I had not enough inner resources to be able to deal with trying to figure out a way to heal.
sure.
And once we get to a place and we decide, and even then we have to be conscious. There are times where, I haven't taken even I haven't even taken an Excedrin or Tylenol for years. But there are times where if we might need something, we have to be, you know, practical.
Right.
But the more whole we get, the less we look outside for solutions. And one of the bigger things is even, for our psychology. I was aware that I was independent, but in Jungian psychology, and it's even practical physics, for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. There's a polarity, the plus and the minus. So I was strongly independent and tough. Oh boy, I had a part of me that had a big hole in my heart where I was seeking to try to find a way on the outer to fill it. And there was no way that could find anything to fill it because it was my hole. And so I could try to put, horses that I loved in it. I have a great husband, and he loves me, but that still didn't fill it. I tried to, see if there was somebody outside, but there is nobody outside that can fill that hole inside of us. And it's taken me years in the work of coaching, but right now I can say that I no longer have that. And and that changes everything because I'm no longer seeking outside of myself. So there's many ways to look outside of ourselves for something magic to heal us. It could be as that we want a pill, we want a surgery, I want to take a drug so I lose weight. I'm still, when I got sick, I got probably 60 pounds overweight, which is hard having been an athlete. Ugh.
Mm,
And, but when coming back, everything I do, I have to do with kindness and love. That was my foundation, one of my first things. So I couldn't force myself to starve as a way to losing weight because I didn't gain weight because I ate bonbons. Gained weight because my whole system didn't work. And I had to heal that from the inside and I had to be patient. And there was a part of me that was self-loathing. I hated, being heavy. That was in my mind some place where I loathed myself. So all of those things, but gradually by practicing kindness and being patient and loving, this in the last year I have shed 30 pounds and I still want to shed another 30, but it's not necessarily a goal of losing weight anymore. It's a goal of being whole and healthy. And so, but I think some people look at that and they say, I want to be this weight or this body image, so I please everyone. And then they take drugs or do surgery. And now that just hurts me because we're all so beautiful on the inside. And that's the beauty that we want to share on the outside. And all of us can do that, but it does take time. And nothing, if it's wholeness, it can move fast. And sometimes it seems to move too fast, quite frankly. But there are many times I wish it would move faster because we're in a society that wants, I want my coffee now. I want my wholeness now. But if it came that fast, I wouldn't have done the work inside to be able to maintain it. So it's a self-mastery. It's an understanding from the inside out. I mean, it's kind of the greatest, it's the gold that they used to talk about in alchemy. Um, So It is the greatest thing, gift of all, is to find our own inner wholeness and to be able to live that. So that is worth more in the world than all the gold in the world. And I think that when we actually become whole, we actually then bring to us by natural law the abundance that we need. We manifest abundance because we have it inside. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I will say, back when I was a musician and was told by my manager that if I lost 8 to 10 pounds, I'd look better on video, in photographs and all of that. So I didn't hear you only need to lose 8 to 10 pounds. I heard you're not good enough. You won't succeed in this industry unless you are thin enough. And so I jumped into anorexia, and yeah, I was tiny. I looked like a clothes hanger, but I was never thin enough in my mind. So I was miserable, even though I looked great in photographs and on video. And the clothes fit me. I still had so much self-loathing. And now here I am, and I'm probably a good 30 pounds heavier than I was then. And yet I love my body. I really do. I mean, I'm in my 60s now. It's never going to be tight like it was in my 20s or 30s or even 40s or 50s. But I'm happy. I'm whole. And it's such a wonderful place to be, that I know that ah, I can't even put it into words any longer. It's just a sense of well-being, of peace, of happiness, and that everything does come in time. And as I look in the mirror now, and I even think about what my face looked like 7 years ago, I think I have more of a lightness that surrounds me now. And that just feels so wonderful. As someone who, again, self-loathed to the point of almost killing myself, you know?
yeah,
And
well,
you
we
all
have that in common too, but let's not talk about that today.
about what?
Um, Almost killing oneself. I mean, I didn't have an outer plan, but my health problems were manifested from my, self-loathing and desire to be elsewhere, to go. I thought
Yes.
God had sent me to the wrong place.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I had to get to that place of complete trust and surrender, you know,
And
because
it's worth it.
it totally is. Totally. My life changed when I quite literally, and I embodied it, quite literally got on my knees and said, I trust and surrender. My humanness is trying to figure all this shit out, and it ain't working for me. So here you go. And I'm willing to accept this journey. And oh my gosh, there's just in letting that go, just in the surrender, I stood up and I was like, I'm good. This is good. I'm gonna be fine. And I was. And it was just that trajectory, that upward, again, this and this, but that was okay
Mhm,
because I knew I was held.
mhm.
And you often say, Hertha, that the body remembers, which we know. Can you explain what that means and why our physical body will hold on to so much of our past? Why is it holding on to that?
Well, first and foremost, I think let's talk for a second. Having been kind of arrogant and thinking that God sent me to the wrong place, kind of arrogant, a lot arrogant, I realized after healing, the last 10 years, I'm like, oh my God, I am so grateful to have a body. Because without the body, think about how amorphous our thoughts are. It's like quicksilver, like mercury, and it moves so quickly. Our emotions are similar, but they're also sticky. And when the emotions and the mind start working, it just kind of goes all over the place. But when we're in our body, the body is a container. And I think part of the reason we come here and we have a body is because the body is honest. Once we get into it, so you kind of get into your body, you can say, what's going on here? I feel fear. Where do I feel that fear? People would say, well, probably in your gut. For me, sometimes I felt fear in my heart. And actually, here's a story about, so part of my trauma was those early things that happened from my mom. And what I had was pericarditis, and it was actually inflammation around my heart and lungs, severe inflammation. And it hurt in like a rectangle box around my heart. Just recently, I was working on going into something that I still feared, and it was a fear of loving and being loved because of my past. And I was kind of coming up against that in life. And as I felt that, um, if I put my hands on my chest and I felt out, about to hear, I would get to a place where there was still, my body had a memory of that where it manifested as the pain from the pericarditis. There was still a memory in my body of that. And for me to heal, at first I wanted, and I moved my hands over it and I'd get to right there and I'd actually start shaking. It was so, my body remembered so much. It had taken all that pain that I felt as a child, and it was other places in my body, but I'll just talk about this one isolated place. And so I gradually, because I'd got moved through spiritually, I don't think I ever carried any burden in that part of my being. Mentally and emotionally, I kind of worked through those, but my body still remembered that much. And so gradually I'd move my hands, I'd go out and into it. And then I got to where I could move across it gently. And I went in this experience that I had in life. I actually decided I was going to go through that fear and allow myself to love and be loved. And it went away. I no longer have that rectangle box. And so that is an example of something that manifested physically, had healed mostly. You can't, I don't think you can find anything in any of my medical records, or if I had tests now, that would indicate that, but I still had a place in my body that remembered that. And so I went through that and I helped my body heal. But it was, I think, Vander Kolk who got into it, Peter Levine, a lot of the current teachings about how the body remembers. My whole idea now is the body remembers the pain. Well, let's allow it to let it move through so it can forget the pain. And then let's fill it with light and love. And the body will remember the light and love. And that will be our foundation, what we share with each other. So I think I am trained in trauma, trauma-informed coaching. I've had deep trauma. And why would we stop at just healing the trauma? I mean, I want the body to remember. I can understand it. I can work with it. I can move it through my body and out. And then I can fill my body with light and love, and it can remember that and share that story. So that to me is the best use of our physical bodies, the temple that we've been given for this life.
Yeah. It teaches us a lot. It's telling us a lot. It's indicating what needs to be addressed if we're willing to take it out and look at it. You know, oh, how
There's
does,
one
and
there's one
go
other
ahead.
way. So this is a little bit harder part of the story. So done all these different healing things, and there's one part of my body, even until this spring, that still hurt. And it was on my right hip. Now, there is nothing that you can find with x-rays. You could probably say that I'm 63, so my hips are starting to get a little tweaky. But
No.
yeah, right. That was where, when I was sexually abused, that was where his hand went. And so in my body, that was one of the last things to heal because that is where, that he didn't necessarily hurt me there. I mean, I was hurt other ways, but there was where he held me. That's where I lost my free will. So there was a place there in my body that hurt, and it would hurt at night. It would wake me up at night. It was one of the hardest things to let that the energy was to move and heal. And so I just thought of that now. It doesn't hurt at night anymore. And so that is another example of how it was an energy tangle that was a combination, again, and in my book, I talk about how being sexually abused is bad, but it's not the physical pain that's the worst. It's the trauma of somebody violating our boundaries. And as a child, it's the trauma of somebody, you look up to violating that. So it's it's almost more of a spiritual wound, and but all of those can be healed. I mean, nothing that happens in this lifetime is actually a big enough hurdle to keep us from being whole. That is one of my greatest messages is we can move through anything that happens to us no matter what. And we could look at the stories from the the horrible things about the Gestapo, the different times where people have been in prison, all those different stories, we can move through anything. And the body, by being aware of it in the body, helps us, it does keep score, and it helps us understand where we still have work to do.
Absolutely. How were you finally able to unlock that and let it go? You were still imprisoned by that. How did you unlock it and say and release it?
I think that one was a combination of many things. I mean, again, it wasn't physical. It was the emotional, spiritual part that was so damaging. And I think it took me until a place in my progress of healing that I literally trusted enough and I felt supported enough and I could love, give and receive love, that at some point there's no tangle in us that can remain at some point when we expand with love and light and we're able to, exist in that consciousness where we're receiving and giving and trusting.
So is that pain gone?
It is. I mean, I have to now pay attention because I forgot until we were talking. And even as I'm sitting here talking to you, I put my attention there. I don't have it. I do go see that physical therapist in October. So I'll ask her what she, because she'll have an outer confirmation about what she finds in her work. So that'll be very interesting.
Yeah. I want to hit on limiting beliefs and the unconscious mind. Many of us wrestle with limiting beliefs. How do those unseen narratives hold us back from growth and joy?
Those are the trickier ones. And so, even, well, this will be pertinent. After our last show, during the show, I watched it. You could let me see it beforehand, and I noticed that I used the words I am and when I watched it, I literally there was still a part of me that was hidden. It was my shadow, and I've been doing some shadow work. Tried seeing it and kind of going in and out of it. And this part raised its head up, and it was like, "You're so stupid. You're a I won't say the word online, but it starts with F, hillbilly. You're ignorant, blah, blah, blah." It was really self-loathing. I mean, I had never really heard this part speak that loudly before. And so I decided that I didn't want anybody hearing me talk like a hillbilly and like I don't even know my words. And so I talked to my coach, who I actually really trust and love. And I sent it to her. So I just said, and that's funny. Probably the first time today. So I sent it to my coach, Trisha Brook, who's been helping me guide through this to become a better speaker, but a lot of this other stuff. And she looked at it. She says, Hertha, that yes, you can get better with your language choice, but the chemistry and what you guys talked about is so helpful to everyone. This will be a great video for other people. And I just dropped it. I didn't fight. I didn't fight myself. I was just like, oh my God. I just saw and embodied, just full on. There's no secret that that part of me was there. And so
Mm.
that part, and I noticed today, even getting ready, I no longer get as self-conscious. Multiple different things have happened since I saw that and I dropped it. So now I think that there comes a time where we get a choice. I could choose to continue to defend myself and try to hold and note if I would have done that, I was thinking about asking you not to publish the video because I didn't want anybody to hear me talk like a hillbilly. I hope it's not saying hillbilly is bad for Pilly. I don't mean to be offensive to anybody.
So your beautiful heart, we know it was not meant in a derogatory manner. Absolutely not.
I'm not sure
I'm
what
so I'm so grateful that you allowed me to publish that because it definitely resonated with a huge amount of people because it was so authentic because the connection is there,
yeah.
you
So if we
know.
unpack that some, I just shared with you, so I've given talks at Oxford, England, different places of the country. I've argued cases in front of, state courts, federal courts, Supreme Courts. And so you'd think I have a lot of self-confidence. Well, I just shared with you that I heard myself speak poorly and I have these names inside of myself that I call myself because I can't, if I can't, I don't seem like I'm literate or something. I'm a hick from the sticks. So that was one of those beliefs, limiting beliefs, and it got covered up. The other thing that it was fed by was unconscious criticism and judgment. That was what my mom gave me. So she projected that into me. I took it in because I was a little girl. I didn't have any choices. But then throughout my life, from 5 to 63, I kept on adding on to it. I put my own crap on top of it and made it worse. And that lived there along with all these other parts of me, but that was always underneath going. And
Mm.
I had not really faced it until that happened. And that it was just like, it was so amazing to me and shocking, literally shocking, because I didn't know that part still resided in me. And it informed everything. So once I addressed it and I decided I will no longer be self-critical and judgmental, and I know I have a habit, so I'll have to practice, then that means that people around me, I won't allow it there either. But if I allow it in me, I'm going to bring it in from outside. They're going to give me what I've not addressed in my unconscious. So it's changed everything, and I think it's one of the most major lessons I'm aware of that I've done in my life about understanding myself and changing. And so that to me is a very good example of a limiting belief that actually I grew, and it was fed by criticism and judgment, and it kept me playing small. If I would have, acted, if I hadn't called somebody I trusted and loved to check out my impulse, I wouldn't be here talking to you now, and I probably wouldn't, be able to impact the people that I want, and I probably wouldn't have healed. So that's just an example of how our shadow works. Now, equally important, what I found out after I looked at that is that Marianne Williamson quote, that it's not our darkness that we're afraid of, it's our light. So once
Mm.
I kind of did battle with that part of me that was pretty horrible, self-loathing and critical and judgmental, then it opened my awareness to the parts of me that I I probably already am, but I don't own. The parts of me that are loving and kind and maybe wise, and I'm like, well, I can't be that. That's just those other people. I project it outward, and everything I see in someone else that I really love, I have it inside of me, or else I wouldn't be able to be aware of it. And so it's for shadow work, it's kindergarten to look at the parts we don't like. I mean, and it's kind of delicious. But more important is really what Marianne Williamson talked about for us to become whole, is for us, each one of us have so much light and love inside of us that's available. But we look at it, and I had all these reasons why I didn't want to be it. I mean, it was amazing. It's like, I don't want, some of my message has a spiritual basis. I don't want to be a spiritual teacher, you know? But then I'm like, well, but I want to speak my truth. So do you see how there I had a part of me that was like, I had places where I would make myself play small. Nobody else made me play small. It was my own limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So it matters who we think we are. At times when I was going through deep healing, I had so much stuff coming up, it was like a flurry, that I decided that all I was who I was in the divine, my divine presence. And I would just kind of think of something, like light and love, and I had these rainbow colors, and that's who I was. And everything else says, I'm not going to talk to you because I'm not you. And for a while, that was enough. But as I got deeper into the work, then I had to become more granular and understanding what was still, inside me. And I'm sure it's ongoing. I mean, it's a little bit of a rodeo some days. And I've learned that if I don't like it when my horses buck because I no longer, want that type of excitement. But there's parts of me that when, light and love in contact, they kind of go through a bucking fit. They curl up, and I'm like, okay, everybody settle down. We're okay. It's okay. And everything has changed. And when the light and love comes in, it does illuminate what is inside. But the end result will be what's left is light and love.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you. I want to pivot now into your group coaching program. You have created a 6-month group coaching. Could you tell us what inspired you to build this offering and what transformation people can expect when they join?
Sure. What inspired me is I haven't done a group for 2 years. I'd done groups for several years before that, and I love doing groups. But the last few years, I was pretty busy working again on my own transformational healing. And sometimes it's better to be focused on and allow what's happening inside. So this is my first offering for a couple years, and I love, love, love coaching. Coaching to me, I'm much more innate for me and natural than I am a good lawyer, but it took me a lot of practice, a lot of hard work to get there. But being a coach, I just love it. And so to be with people, and because of the past, my life that I've lived, there's not much anybody can tell me that I can't just be fully present and comfortable with. In fact, I've not found anything. There's nothing I love more than seeing people find themselves inside of themselves and move towards wholeness. So I'm creating an opportunity to join me for 6 months. It's a Zoom group. It'll meet every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So it's 7 Eastern. So trying to find a time and the clock that will work for all of us, even when we work. It'll be safe, deeply sharing. It's limited to 12 women. So if you're interested, and I will entertain groups, mixed groups in the future. If men are interested, please let me know. And I may even do a group for men. I do coach men, and that's actually one of my niches. But men usually want to be coached individually, not in a group. I'm offering for your viewership $500 off, and all they have to do is write in when they apply. They write in the word Kimber, and so
Oh,
it's 2,500, but with that's 500 off, 2,000 for 6 months. And then we will work together and we'll go over the 5 pillars that I teach about in my transformational healing masterclass. And we're going to put how we'll have a QR code, and we'll put in the notes where a link also so you can find that. But that's where I really go into, I think it's about 18 minutes where I go deeper into the transformational healing, the 5 pillars, what we need. And so I would love to have anybody show up. If you're searching, instead of searching for that magical pill or a savior, if you're willing to look into your own inner resources and to develop your self-mastery my gift, I think, is to language the inner moves of transformational healing. And I would love to help you. And if you come to the class, the group class, I will also then give 10% off one of my retreats next summer.
ooh, ooh, out in Montana?
Yes, in Montana.
Oh, beautiful. So there are, throughout this video, you will see QR code links. Feel free to scan those, whether you want more information, you do want to do the 6-month journey with Hertha. And also in the description box and pinned comment below. So there's many ways to either contact Hertha, get more information, or actually go ahead and take advantage of that 500 off by using my name, Kimber, Kimber, at checkout. You will get to enjoy that super savings. Thank you so much for this offering. We're going to jump back into Gestalt work. You are a trained Gestalt coach. You are a master Gestaltist as well. You bring both your expertise and your lived experience to this work. How does Gestalt coaching show up in your program, and what makes it unique for the participants?
Yes, Gestalt is a German word for wholeness. And we were trained by Melissa Pierce, and she taught us that horses are natural gestaltists, and that's because they're here and now. So during the group, we'll together practice being here and now. I will use some Gestalt exercises each night. We'll work through that so people will have the opportunity to get to understand themselves better through things I've learned in the Gestalt course. And I will also teach the 5 pillars of transformational healing, and we'll probably occasionally do something from my book, The Alchemy of Resilience. And so those would be the resources that we would use. And Gestalt is amazing to me. It is, I mean, how the consciousness of it, the philosophy, and after going through the courses and doing Gestalt with Melissa and teaching, now life is Gestalt for me. And
Mm.
and I think it is for any of us. Once we find that self-awareness and we're kind of in the flow of our own reason for life and how it unfolds. And I'd love to share that. And note, as a coach, we are co-equal. I don't see people, I don't have to figure out what's wrong with them. In fact, I don't see people as what's wrong. I see them as whole. And I also am so excited to coach now because I now get to coach from where I am now in my consciousness. And that I'm so grateful to be where I am, but also to share it. I didn't have a problem before, but I'm aware that with that, my own self-loathing that I had to kind of keep wrapped up in a little box in there, with that being moved through, and I'm not saying it's gone forever because it's a habit, but it's certainly changed. And so to be able to sit with people and to not even have to use any energy to keep a part of myself restrained so it doesn't show up in the session, to coach from the freedom that I have now, I'm very, very excited to share that. And note that we learn from others, not by just what they say. We learn by, what we feel and what we learn at multiple levels of our being. And so again, I'm so excited to see how this group forms and to see who shows up. And it will be a great journey together. And I look forward to, seeing people in Montana. So, if you have any part of your heart, sign up or uh, go on to our website at herthalund.com, and there's a place where you can sign up and we can have a phone call. If you have questions for me, I give a free phone call. I'm
Love
very,
it.
yeah, since I'm asking you to trust me, I don't trust people unless I get to talk to them and, get a little bit of contact. I'm very open to people who want to know a little bit more, that we get to spend some time together. Because if you if your heart tells you to come but you're a little bit nervous, check it out. And then if you get to a place where it's yes, you come and it'll be great. And if you get to a place no and you keep on searching, that means that this isn't it's possible it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing for everyone. Remember, one of my first things I taught today was that when we want to heal, we will be provided what we need. And so that means this isn't what you need to heal. There's something else. So you follow your heart and find that. But at any rate, walk the path of wholeness and make that commitment that you'll do whatever it takes and you will be provided what you need to heal. And I would love it if that part of that is my group. So
I love that you offer that. I think that is a sound uh, next step if you are at all hesitant. I absolutely love that. How do you ensure that the group feels like they're in a safe and supportive space for the women who actually join this group?
that's a really good question. And that is where, the cowgirl part of me or the attorney part, I am very much an advocate for safety in the group. And the ways that I build that is not not everybody may get into the group. I mean, we will have to I check things out and I try to make sure that the group is set up for success.
Hmm.
And if we will we'll have our own group rules that we agree to early on, one of our first sessions. And so far, I have never had a problem though, in all the retreats and everything, because when I model, kindness and the kind of the loving behavior that I want other people to emulate, other people just do it. So, and there was one time where I did talk to one woman outside of the session for something this minor. So I would say that based on my experience, it will be a safe group. And it will be a safe group for deep sharing. And
Hmm.
because we can't really heal unless it is a place where we feel safe and it's deep. So I will
Absolutely.
safeguard that. That's my commitment to anybody who comes. That is near and dear to my heart. And it's fundamental to transformational healing to feel safe.
100%. I know that your program is built around the five powerful pillars: presence, heal thyself, unlock imprisoned energy, redefine who you think you are, and create a light-filled life. Could you walk us through these pillars and how they serve as antidotes to fear, anxiety, and uncertainty?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. When we embody presence, that means that we're not in our amygdala. We have to be in our forebrain. And so that is the antidote to, and when we're, I'll back up for just a second, when we're in the forebrain, the cerebellum, not in the amygdala, fight or flight, fear, fawn, freeze, then we have the vibration, the consciousness to be able to connect and heal. And so that presence is fundamental for that. And we can learn how to catch ourselves when we get triggered. And note, up until even this last year, I got triggered by my PTSD. So I know it'll probably come up probably through the rest of my life. I'm just getting better at understanding when I'm there and walking myself from there to the place where I'm not acting from the amygdala. So that's first and foremost. We'll practice presence. And then I'll help people go through a process, about making the decision, the desire, the deep desire, and then the actions to heal ourselves. And it's not as much action like I got to go jog 5 miles a day, although, outer exercise will probably be part of it. But it's more of a deep, deep, just question or desire first. It's if you've read the books Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, you have to do outer things, but it's first to really feel that that's what you desire. We can manifest wholeness and healing, but we really have to desire it with our hearts and believe that we're worthy. So I think that for some of us, that the worthiness issue may come up before we can really decide to choose to be whole. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
next one was unlock the imprisoned energy.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we'll do some exercises, together, and you'll have some homework in between sessions to where you kind of do your own body scans to figure out where that energy is stuck. And this is coactive. So I will tell you what I've learned, but what I've done is not necessarily what will work for you. It will probably inspire you to find your own path. And that's what I hope, my greatest hope, is that you know, use my words, my example, and then you find your inner path and your inner voice that directs you. But we'll work on that. And then we get to what you think matters. So, we'll probably do a list of and share what we still think that we think, that is a limiting belief. And by that time, together we'll come up with how we might let go of those limiting beliefs. And sometimes they're stuck in our body. So I may say, where does that body, where does that feeling, that thought, that limiting belief reside in your body? Well, it's my solar plexus. Okay, well, put your hands there. Put your hand on your heart. We may do just some really simple body exercises that may allow you to find a way to unhook those. So there is
Mm-hmm.
somatics to it. And you're wherever you are, and I'm here, and we'll work on our somatics. And lastly, will be the funnest part, is how to create a light-filled life. And that one I'm still learning because I am on this same journey. I'm just a little bit farther ahead than hopefully the people that will come and join me. And together, if you're ahead of me, together, we'll still learn together. And to leading a light-filled life, that is a practice that all of us, I would love to be in community and develop. And for me, it's having to be an Olympian in life and an Olympian and leading a life filled with light and love. It's my daily practices. I mean, I start out with a daily devotional prayer life from a half hour to an hour and a half. So I get up at 4, and then I sometimes I do intermittent fasting, but otherwise I'll eat a simple breakfast. I go out and do chores. I like to go take care of my horses, and I get lots of deep thoughts while I'm out doing that. And then I start working on I have two professions right now: the equine gestalt coach, which also is writing, teaching, and the inspirational speaking. And then I have my law practice, and I have 4 or 5 employees there. And if anybody's ever litigation, they say, is a jealous mistress. So it demands a lot. And so for me to do both and stay healthy and maintain my path to wholeness of being light and love. And no, when I go into court, I am like literally almost not quite energetically fisticuffs, but there are times where court with judges, most of the judges are pretty good, but some opposing counsel. I mean, I still experience some parts of life that are really distasteful. And being a litigation lawyer, I haven't given it up because I'm still building this new practice, and but also because people need good counsel, and I love, love, love defending people and their rights and who they are. So, but it's almost like living right brain, left brain, and going back and forth. So, but to do that, I need to keep my prayer life going. I need to eat correctly and healthy. And if I eat, we don't even hardly have sugar in our house, my husband and I. I don't eat much sugar. I kind of like it still. But yes. So we each one of us has a diet that works better for us. But at some point, there are things that don't work for us that just have to go away. And I also, the other thing I do is I get enough sleep. That was the first thing after I died. And I was talking, say, okay, God, what do I do first? And he said, well, you have to sleep. And I'm like, I haven't slept for much for decades because of all the pain. And it was physical pain, but it was emotional pain that had been stuck in my body. And I was like, well, okay. So I actually took, kind of did the medical model first. I took medication to sleep because I had to sleep. So one way or the other, I had to retrain my body, my consciousness, my habits, everything so I could sleep. And then I did, kind of gradually went to more natural things. I took a natural supplement for years, but it took me 2 or 3 years before I finally slept through all night. One morning I woke up and I thumped my chest and I looked at my husband and I said, I'm a championship sleeper. He said, you sure are. So that's
Oh.
just an example of something very practical that seems, not that big a deal, but sleep is very important. And I start winding down at, 7:30. And because if I don't go to bed early, it's like I miss my ride to the other world. And then I don't sleep. And I can get by with one or two nights, but for me to be at the level that I want to be able to create and share and be an instrument of light and love, I need to get my rest. And so those are, it's you boil it down to success, even in transformational healing, and I think in all parts of our life, come back to our daily habits, the small things.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
we have a spiritual practice that lights us up. Do we eat food and take into our system? And I do watch some TV, and if I get the more exhausted I get because I do so much mental work, the more I kind of want to watch stupid TV because it lets my mind rest. I will do some of that, but if it gets too big, and when I close my eyes at night and I see scenes, that is taking in something into my world. And so then I'm like, okay, this I can't do this anymore because now, even though it gives me a place to relax, I'm taking stuff in that then I have to counterbalance. It'd be like eating a whole bunch of
Hmm.
sugar. It's not going to
Hmm.
kill me just one donut or something, but it does mess up my digestion, my whole system to have that extra, hit of sugar. So if I take in even not horrible TV, if those thoughts, that's what's in the front of my mind's eye. I mean, I want my mind's eye to be thinking about, the divine, oneness, wholeness, and the bringing in and so I'm
Hmm.
not rigid, but if something starts looking like it's out of balance, then I make tiny tweaks all the time. And so it's what we take into our consciousness that matters. It's who we surround ourselves with. As you start healing, you will notice that the people around you change. Sometimes they change in who they are because you free them up to heal. And sometimes they change in like that the people around you in the past are no longer around you now because you no longer resonate.
Right.
So there's change. But so that's what you take in, so you've got to be careful at all levels of being what you've got to surround yourself with. But then there's the getting enough sleep and then getting exercise. Right
Hmm.
now, my goal is for the month of September to ride at least 2 horses a day and walk because for us, we'll get winter. And once we get winter, I do still go out and do chores, but it's a much different life here in Montana. So I'm doing my
Yeah.
best to get, and this winter is, I could say it's my goal, but it's going to be my practice. I am going to continue to try to keep my physical shape that I get in the summer through the winter. So when we talk next year, you can ask me whether or not I maintain that. I'm saying it here. But those are the
I
types.
will.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not doing a New Year's resolution. I'm setting myself up. This is the goal that I'm going to put into practice. So it's our daily habits and what we do every day that leads to our success, even for transformational healing. Is a very
Abs
well.
Absolutely. It's the things we say, and for me, I agree. I tell people, don't call me after 7. I'm, I have to start closing certain things down to open up. One for me that I know that while I sleep, I get a lot of downloaded messaging and that I have to then wake up and share with certain people. But also because I think we are go, 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 and we're That's what it takes. And if I can't watch anything that might stimulate, because that you like you said, that's it. My night's sleep is disrupted already. I've missed my window of opportunity to shut down and sleep peacefully. And then upon waking, it is the first thing I do is I thank you, Jesus, and I name the things that I am grateful for. And it starts with the pillow beneath my head, my dog that has her head on my chest, my horse, my friends, my and I go on and on and on. And then I say, and now I get to get up and go do this. I don't say, I have to go to work, I have to. No, I say, I get to, because it's truly a gift. I do get to. And it changes my entire perspective of my day and how it goes. And then also, because we have spirit guides and guardian angels and that, I enlist the help of mine. As soon as I'm like, we got a lot to get done today. So I'm going to need your assistance and support. Let's go. And I feel that presence. I feel that support throughout my entire day. And then upon getting close to closing, thank you. Thank you for the gifts, the blessings, and abundance in my life, the learning opportunities, on and on and on and on. And your brain, we know this, right? With neurolinguistics, we know that we can create new neural pathways in the brain that start to see the bright instead of seeing the always the and the negative side of life. We become really true embodied optimistics about our journey and our lives, and it helps in a big way, big way.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's talk about a typical group session and what that looks like. We're going to go back to this group because again, people, if you're interested in this 6-month group online with Hertha, if you click on that QR code and you get out there to sign up, and again, Hertha is offering that if you want to get more information, she is always open to having a conversation with you. So don't hesitate. If you're feeling that urge, don't hesitate. And again, this is not a sales pitch. Hertha's not going to get you on the phone to try to convince you that this is the program you should take. That's not what this is about, because again, we are about healing, whatever that journey looks like for you. It might not be the right path, but you'll know and you'll get more information. Use my name, Kimber, on checkout, and you will get $500 off of this course. That sounded a little salesy, but I have to mention that. I don't have to. I want to, because what a great gift. I think that's beautiful. And thank you for offering that. So, what does a typical group session look like? How do you combine science, psychology, spirituality, and even the wisdom of horses into the work that you do?
Wow, what a big question. So we would start on time at 5, and each person will get to check in. And so I ask people to check in with where they're at. So it's not talking about, we try not to talk from our outer persona, but from what our inner being. And so that's oftentimes in our lives, it's the only time that part gets to talk. And so we check in and we share with what's going on inside of us. And you'd be surprised how when we talk, but when we listen to other people, we get, by the time we're done with the check-in, we're already deeply connected. And that might be 5:30 or 5:40. It is something that is a very important part of the group. And then we might do something like, I might have people do a family sculpture. So each person would remember when they were 12, and I would have them show us with something that they brought to symbolize each person in their family when they were 12. And anyhow, it's a process where when we're 12, we're making decisions about life, about how life is. They're not all correct.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so we go back and look at it through that lens, and that's usually a big aha experience for the person who does the exercise, but for all the rest of us. And so that might take another half hour or some other Gestalt practice, half hour to 40 minutes. So now we have a little bit left at the end. And at that time, according to what the group was working on and what I felt, then I would teach what my path, what I understand to help people with their next steps for healing. It'll be open for questions. And I teach from my example in life, I am fairly, I was a pre-med, pre-vet student, so I have a fairly strong background in some of those concepts, but I'm probably more natural than anything. If I were a savant, it would probably be in psychology. I mean, I love, love, love thinking about psychology and how people work and what works for them. And for me, it's not a mental understanding, it's a feeling. The only reason I want to know is so that I can help guide somebody, help them find their way through. And I believe that if I'm coaching you, that you have the answers, and my job is to help you find them. So that last part would be something for that. But sometimes I teach from what I've learned from Mother Nature. Actually, Hertha means Mother Earth. And I teach from what I've learned from the horses. And so sometimes I may share something that Mystic taught me, or Monk, or Ruby, or Nighthawk, or Merlin. And they teach us their ways of being can teach us in ways when we use essential oils, it passes the blood-brain barrier. I think horses past that our egoic self that tries to keep information out. And so sometimes when I share stories from the horses, that helps people it clicks for them. It's like, oh, I understand now. But everything in the group will be about in service of each person finding their next step for transformational healing and wholeness.
And that is so empowering to find your answers within yourself, that they do exist in there. And as I often say, I'm the Sherlock to your homes, like oh, really? Or what was it, Columbo? Remember Private the right? That kind of thing. Yeah, it's and that and getting to, oh my gosh, witness and experience with each individual when they have that aha moment, when the answer becomes so crystal clear to them, and then knowing there you were and here you are and here we'll go. It's just, oh gosh. Oh. Well, let's look at the logistics of this now. So how often will you meet during the 6 months, and how are you going to balance individual support with the power of group connection?
We will meet once a week, and
Okay.
obviously things come up in life, so if you miss one, you just get to come back the next time and plug back in. There may be a time where I have to do something else, so then I would try to either do it from traveling or reschedule, but hopefully that won't be very often.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
but it is a weekly group and we'll try to meet every Wednesday. The logistics, you asked me, what was the last question?
How will you navigate, um, the group work and then someone possibly needing one-on-one?
Yes. So far with group, I'm fairly ca capable of keeping us all at the playing level.
Mhm.
But if somebody needs other, we'll meet offline. It will be my commitment to each person who attends group that I'm there for them to be able, it is a very deep commitment for me to support them in their path. And that's why I limit it to 12. Because that's,
Yeah.
if I get any more than that, I mean, if we're just listening, you could have more, but I need to be able to keep track of and connect with each person and to be there for them for those 6 months so that, they have the support that they need and the safety that they need. What I found in my healing is that there were certain places that when I needed to go, but I just needed somebody else to kind of be close with me, so that I could reach out to if I needed. And I didn't have to do that often, but I needed to know they were there. And so
Mhm.
it seems like that healing, transformational healing is, it takes more than one. It takes the group or at least one other person to walk with us, to be available so that we feel safe.
Right, absolutely. I can tell you from personal experience with my own groups that, we'd get through, my groups would run for 12 weeks, and then I'd have to start another separate group because this group just loved groups so much and they developed such a bond. They were like, well, can we keep going? What else can we do? I'm like, all right, now I got to come up with some other kind of coursework that we can do that everybody will resonate with so we can keep this group going. And it was beautiful. And now we do every so often, we'll all get together on Zoom just to touch base with each other because we just develop such a strong bond with one another. It's beautiful and again so safe. So we do it like a check-in, right? So we get together every so often and we do a check-in to see how everyone's doing. It's beautiful. I love that. And tell us when this particular group is going to begin. We know it's going to last for 6 months. And tell us again about the commitment of the participant.
Yes, it will begin October 1st, Wednesday at 5 Mountain Time. It will go until March 25th. And it is $2,500 for 6 months, so one-time payment or monthly. However, if people write in the code Kimber, they get $500 off. And then if people want to continue after that as a group or individually to come to one of my retreats next summer, they'll get 10% off that retreat. What I found is that people who come to the group, they're very well situated then to get the most benefit out of attending a retreat and being there with the horses and I at the ranch. So,
What does a in a brief synopsis, what does a retreat with Hertha on your ranch encompass?
oh, they're amazing. I love, love, love our retreats. And so I have 6 horses and they all have different personalities. They are listed on my website if you want to get to know them. But they love doing the retreats. And in fact, we haven't had as many this year. And they're almost like saying, Hertha, where are the people? And they're amazing. I've been with, see, all of them have been here for at least 2 years, some of them 4 or 5. And it's the most beautiful horses I've ever had, been around. I feel so blessed. And they're the foundation, literally, of my healing, but also the healing that I share with others. When I was in the program, I was fortunate enough, blessed, my husband built my retreat center on our ranch. So we built a barn, a big barn, and a place, we have a chef that comes in and cooks for people, so they're pampered with what they eat. We built some rooms right in the barn. There's a round corral and a place for us all to sit to get out of the weather. But we have 3 bedrooms there that are people say it's kind of like certainly I don't know, it's 5 star, but 4 star. So that's very nice. We have some other rooms outside that I call the Trabans. On the outside, they don't look that fancy, but on the inside, they're pretty nice. So everybody has their own bedroom, and we have a cook. And so you come and you just get to leave your outer life behind and
Mm.
slow down, step in, be present with the horses and I. And I have seen every person who's come to a retreat has told me it's life changing. It is the most amazing thing for me to be part of and to witness, and I just love it. So we'll mostly be around the horses, and we work together and we hold space. And I mean, it's too much to explain, but every group is so different. And the horses show up different and the groups show up different, but it's still the same experience where people expand and heal. We may go out and hike. We're at about a mountain high in the foothills of the Castle Mountains, and we look at the crazy mountains. If you fly into Bozeman, you'll see at least 5 different mountain ranges on the way here, and you go through one pass. So it's a beautiful drive from the moment you get off the plane. It's just gorgeous. And so we're in this high mountain meadow, and for me, there's rolling hills and there's mountains in the background. And every time I turn into the valley that opens up to where our ranch is, it's just like I feel like I'm back to my slice of heaven on earth and Mother Earth. I mean, there's a big part of me that resonates with Mother Nature, and it's so prevalent here. And there's this one little pass that we can see from the barn, and I call it Shangri-La. It's like it's right there, and you can go through there from here. I mean, we can all, and Shangri-La, if those people don't know, it was actually a movie, but it's a story about it's a place of paradise, of your divine consciousness, of what we think of, whatever that means to us. And part of the movie, there was a movie back in I think the 60s or 70s, but it's like it seems like it's somewhere else, but in my consciousness, it's right here. We can get there from here.
Mm. Beautiful. What would be a retreat stay? 3 days, 4 days, 5 days? What's that look like?
It's Thursday to Sunday. So we start Thursday at 4 and we
Okay.
get done Sunday at 1, sometimes a little bit earlier because the flight's out of Montana to get to the East Coast. We have to shut down by noon so that people can make their flight.
Beautiful. Hertha, if there's one piece of wisdom that you hope each participant, even our audience today, carries forward from your work, what would that be?
The one piece of wisdom is that you have a divine mission. You didn't show up in this body on earth happenstance. And the way to finding your happiness, your peace, fulfilling all that you're meant to be is to go deep within and to shed those parts of you that you've created to protect yourself from being hurt and to allow the light and love that is within you to come out. And when that comes out, that is that creates your slice of heaven or whatever terminology you want to use. That's the greatest peace and love and light and wholeness we can live on earth. That also is, I think, our reason for being here. All the other part, whether it's money, winning this or winning that, all that is our stepping stones to our inner wholeness. And so our life and the outer life seems to has it all backwards. But when we start living from that, and I still run 2 businesses. I still give talks. I still want to have the money that I want to have to be able to serve others. So it doesn't, I still have those things. It's just a different reason. And when you go within and develop that which was within you, there's no greater gift that you can give to those you love. And that is your way to fulfill your reason for being. It's also what it will take for transformational healing. So, and that's what I would hope for each person, regardless. I mean, I hope to get to meet you, but my highest goal is to spark that knowledge and that love inside of you so that it awakens and that becomes your driving force in life. And that is the way that will create the outer life that we all hope for. We are, each one of us is a spark in the revolution of us developing a bonfire of wholeness that we live from in our communities, in our families, in the nation, and the world.
Yes, thank you. Hertha, my beautiful soul sister, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your heart, your wisdom, in this exciting new program. I know our audience is going to walk away feeling inspired, and I encourage everyone who felt that nudge inside to go ahead and take the next step. Check out Hertha's 6-month group coaching program. And remember, there are limited spots available. And if you sign up through this channel, you're going to receive a $500 discount. Just use the code Kimber when you register. I'm so tickled to hear that. I love it. And friends, if today's conversation resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more powerful interviews like this one. And until next time, keep embodying presence, keep seeking wholeness, and as always, keep loving those horses, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so very much. Everything you need for information for either the coaching program, getting in touch with Hertha, watching her Oxford Talk video, a link to her book on Amazon, all of those things are in the description code box and in our pinned comment below the video. Thank you so much for being here on the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. And my dear friend and soul sister, Hertha, I will talk to you so very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimber.